Hey guys, Kevin Cage here with another crypto update. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We'll keep it short and sweet. We're going to go over some recent news, probably for XRP, Casper, HBAR, maybe a few others if we have time. But I also want to talk about this chart right here, this picture, the path to alt season. So I'm sure you're familiar with this, but just in case you're not, this is showing the money flow during each bull run, and I believe it's fairly accurate, especially when you're looking on the monthly and the weekly time frame. And you know, if you're on the 4-hour chart or the daily, it could be different than the monthly. So I mean, at some points, because charts are a fractal, so one contains the whole, and you're looking at these cycles or these patterns, if you're looking on the 4-hour, I mean, maybe we're in phase 3, and then it goes here, and then it repeats. But these are on the smaller time frames, so they're smaller moves. So I'm looking for the historical or the usual cycle, so I'm looking at the monthly time frame, which is why I believe we're still in phase 1. And there are always exceptions, so it doesn't mean in phase 2 that other assets can't absolutely rocket, or during phase 1 other assets can't perform, but during these phases, historically, during alt season, this is when the highest majority of assets outperform the ROI of Bitcoin. And you can look at last cycle, and we did see the highest majority of assets do this during alt season, but there were several dozen that maybe led the way, and there were several dozen that did it much later. And friendly reminder that these videos are never financial advice like it says in the disclaimer, but I am sharing what I believe right or wrong, so I believe that these cycles are still going to be accurate, and I'm still paying attention to this. Another good point is keeping in mind the phase overlap for all of these phases. Alright, so without going down a giant charting rabbit hole, let's just briefly touch on my thoughts of the cycle. So, I've shared in detail before, I believe that we are in another cycle. We got confirmation with that first major move, or that full monthly candle body over the previous cycle top, like we've seen for the last 3 bull runs or cycles. So looking at the monthly RSI, we're in an exciting position for the make or break. If we break through this level, the resistance around 76.77. Historically, when this momentum goes up, this is really good for Bitcoin or any asset. For example, XRP's momentum is like over 80 right now. So I use RSI as a momentum indicator, and specifically for crypto cycles when you're on the monthly time frame, I think it tells a really exciting picture because during the last 3 cycles, we all got up to 90. So basically, that's what I expect. I believe that we go well over 80, even if it's diminishing returns, we still get up here significantly for Bitcoin, and historically, looking at the price action when we're over this level, with buying pressure being sustained and growing, what does it do? It pushes prices up, as we can see. And that's not to say that we can't do pullbacks along the way up or crash at any point. I believe that we're still going to be similar to 2017 as long as we backtest and hold above the 8-month EMA with full monthly candle bodies. I believe we're still in another cycle and everything's fully intact. So just like we kept backtesting even after getting the first major move over this top, we can see backtest, backtest, backtest. Didn't backtest here. So those are my expectations, super basic on the monthly time frame. And for reference, the 8-month EMA is right around 81,000. So based on where we're at today, we're going to see if we just kind of range and chop and we're bored for a while, if Bitcoin actually pushes to 120 or 140k, or we actually crash and backtest to the 8-month EMA, and then people say this is the end of the bull run, the top is in. Which even if that happens, I don't believe that's the case. I think that it's possible we see backtest on the highs and crazy flash wicks like we did here, like last time when it went to 49k, but we still held this 8-month EMA. And eventually I would hope to see a phase overlap where Ethereum finally takes off, and looking at last cycle, Bitcoin got its first major move right here during the middle of December, December 14th, we're just looking at the monthly candle body right there. So we got our first major move in December. Where was Ethereum? Starting to take off because at the end of December was exactly when alt season began. But going to Ethereum's all-time high price, we can see that we didn't really get like a big monthly candle, not even the full one until April, and really started blasting in March. So it's a few months behind. So I've just been saying December for Bitcoin, and then we got March, and we know that we got our first major move this cycle for Bitcoin in November, so hopefully sooner than later, Ethereum can follow last cycle and blast. And I'm not saying that the ROI for Ethereum would be insane being a large cap, but I think it still has good potential, and I want it to go up because that is really good for other assets. And at least looking at the monthly RSI, so right now for Ethereum, the momentum looks weak on the monthly. We'd have to check the weekly and the daily and do top down to see if the trend would be shifting, but that's something to keep in mind. And then right now for Bitcoin, we're at that make or break. So we're going to see, do we break through and keep running? Do we chop, or do we actually reject this resistance and it takes a little longer during a pullback towards the 8-month EMA? So I know we're in a boring range right now, and Ethereum, yes, maybe it does go a little below 3,000 to like 2,400, 2,800, but I'm still waiting for the bigger moves because right or wrong, I believe that the cycle is intact and Ethereum does do major moves in all-time highs this cycle. I believe I've already said this in previous videos, but I've seen some weird tweets from Vitalik and different FUD or maybe valid concerns for Ethereum governance. You just never know, but hopefully this is just the usual cycle where people get bored over the coming months and then boom. And even just looking at Ethereum's dominance compared to Bitcoin dominance. So this is Ethereum's percentage share of the total crypto market cap. And we can see that we are in absolute free fall and the monthly RSI is going into oversold. I could speculate on a million trend lines if we went down to the weekly and looked for like a potential bottom for this, but basically during the last cycle, Ethereum dominance was falling, and then just boom, sharp recovery out of nowhere. So alt season actually began during December 28th, 2020, so let me find that exactly on the chart, and as we can see, that was the big move, just a sharp recovery out of nowhere after a very deep flash wick. So that's actually something I'm considering for Ethereum if we do see similar price action just kind of crashing a little bit, pulling back, and then out of nowhere, just a big recovery. So I'm hoping that sooner than later for the sake of assets because some days I get bored. Even here we can see like a sharp drop, 15-20%, and then from that wick, just a massive recovery in the future. So really from December 28th up until the top around here, even though we did go higher up until May. When we go to Bitcoin dominance on the weekly, looking at last cycle and those dates, that basically aligns with Ethereum's price action for alt season. We can see December 28th up until May 10th. So the top and then the crash to the bottom. So to each their own, but I don't think this is a big coincidence. I think that these are patterns that you can see on the higher time frames. And then the real question is, when are we going to get another alt season? Because we have been rising, we're in a setup for a crash, but where is our top? I was hoping it's here, and it might still be, even if we're ranging, but we still need to lose the 50-week moving average. So really just kind of twiddling my thumbs, watching the levels, because I guarantee, not financial advice, that when we see Bitcoin dominance down here below 50, assets are going to be up. Large caps, mid caps, then eventually more micro caps, different sector rotations. The excitement and euphoria is going to be up, and it won't last forever. So during 2017, if you even look at Bitcoin, I mean, it did run a while, but last cycle during alt season, we'll just measure the top until the crash. This is like 130 days, give or take. So that's what I'm hoping for in 2025 for a variety of assets for 2 months or even 4 months. And that's just looking at last cycle for personal expectations. If the market wants to give us a full year or a long cycle, even better, I think that would be more based on the Fed if they did actually really add to their balance sheet like they did in 2020. That would be one hell of a catalyst. And in terms of a true liquidity cycle that Raoul Pal has highlighted in detail, that is the one major catalyst we need, along with M2, but all of these things are related. But there's not much to say until we see where Bitcoin dominance actually crashes, because it's still possible if it goes up. I didn't think it would though, but it's possible. If Bitcoin gobbles up liquidity, its dominance increases, and it goes high. That is a possible scenario, but my bias is I kind of just want alts to pump, so keep that in mind. But yes, it is interesting that the monthly RSI almost got up to 70 and crashed. If this keeps climbing, then maybe Bitcoin gobbles up liquidity even longer. But ideally, I'm just a little loopy and I'm talking about these scenarios as we're just ranging and it's similar to previous cycles and we actually get alt season this quarter. Hopefully we're in a range like this. I would just be a lot more confident if we were already below this yellow moving average like the previous cycles. I want to lose the strength of this trend. And one last point is if Bitcoin dominance goes up as Bitcoin pulls back, alts can in theory go a lot lower and that would be a big sentiment shift. In that scenario, I'm telling you right now, I would be DCing with capital that I can invest and hold for the cycle. Because in that scenario, if Bitcoin dominance climbs, as Bitcoin pulls back or chops a little longer and alts go lower, I still believe that this is going to lead to a much bigger crash. So overall, just expecting Bitcoin dominance to find its top, even if it already has, and crash to the lows, because that is when I want to make sure I have the most exposure to altcoins. Alright, shared by Ripple. So I'm sure you guys have seen this, but they did get new money transfer licenses in New York and Texas. So that's a good thing for the XRP ledger, the Ripple US dollar, all types of things. And then somewhere here they did mention, let's see, bringing the total to more than 50 money transfer licenses, with more than 60 licenses globally. So they are positioned really well. Alright, next up for Casper. So last month I did an 18-minute video going over Casper Network and sharing my thoughts. And same thing stands, nothing has changed. If we see anything related to ACTUS with news this quarter, I'm definitely going to be covering it. If you haven't watched this full video, feel free to check it out. I share a bunch of information in this one. I did meet with the former Casper Labs guys at the Puerto Rico Blockchain Week. I'm good buddies with Michael, like we can chat whenever. I just saw his comment on Twitter the other day. And I believe there's still plenty of people covering Casper on YouTube. I believe that Encash still does. I introduced him to Casper, I don't know, maybe August or September of 2021. My buddy Matt sent me a video and I was like, oh cool, because he was reading one of my tweets and started getting into it. So I mean, I still think there's a community discussing Casper, but But I've shared in this video in detail what I want to see in terms of implementations. I keep tabs and I'm on the email list for governance updates and things like that. So any big news that I do see, I'll be sure to cover it. I believe I also went over the Casper price chart in that video a month ago, and I haven't seen any big structural changes, so we're still just kind of ranging up, down, and my big focus is on Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance for this year. Because watching those move will kind of give me insight when I should get a lot more excited for a bunch of assets. And also related to ACTUS, so I know a bunch of projects are working on AI solutions, DeFi, integrations, building liquidity, all good things. But ACTUS is one of the use cases that I'm most excited for. I still am, but I want to see implementations. And we know the CEO of Nucleus Finance, Sanjay, said a while back, on a mission to revolutionize the way $50 trillion of financial contracts are created and executed. Now, $50 trillion is a huge number, but you could also make the argument that it's way bigger than that if you included other things like derivatives. And as far as I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've heard and I have seen, is there have only been 3 crypto projects that have worked with ACTUS thus far, which would be Casper Network, Ethereum, and Cardano. And there might be other projects working on this, so if there are, please let me know. But if you go to the ACTUS Financial Research Foundation right here, you go to this website, .org, and then we go to the About page. When we scroll down, we can also see for Casper, let me make sure it actually loads. We should see it down here. Yep, so right here we have Casper. So we know Casper, we know Deloitte, we know Nucleus Finance, and we know Ariadne. And I've shared this a bunch. This is the ISO 222 RMG, or Registration Management Group list. So we know that RippleNet is in this list, but we also have ACTUS. Let me do a control find for Ariadne as well, just to show you. So we have Ariadne, and then we also have ACTUS right there. Or I should say this group, the ACTUS Financial Research Foundation, where Casper's a contributor. And yes, there is RippleNet in this list as well, alongside the company name. And we know that Ariadne is involved with Nucleus Finance. The last that I heard about Nucleus Finance a few months ago was that they're looking for funding. But I do like that you can see them as contributors right on the ACTUS website for the Financial Research Foundation. The only other 2 projects that I believe had anything to do with ACTUS or even working with the protocol were Cardano and Ethereum. And really quick, you could just probably Google this. I believe it was Marlo, a domain-specific language for writing financial contracts on Cardano integrating the ACTUS standard. I do need to research this more to see if there has been any activity, but as far as I know today, Casper is further ahead than them. And same thing for Ethereum, there was an ACTUS protocol right here. This is a few years ago though, so a while back. I don't know if they really developed anything or got moving. So those are the 3 projects I know that are or have been involved with ACTUS, and I believe that Casper still is. So point being is retail applications can get a community, it can build adoption, it can build hype, even affect price, but the biggest use cases like ACTUS have yet to even see the crypto space, at least for public blockchain networks. So that's really what I'd be most excited for and keeping tabs on for any news related to Casper Network specifically with ACTUS. And if they're saying that the market is, say $50 trillion, getting a fraction of that would be huge on any public network. But before talking about any potential Moonboy targets, we need to see implementations on different chains. There could be new projects that come out of nowhere, or Casper could really start building. And last but not least, guys, so related to the interest rates, we can see iTrustCapital sharing this today. The Federal Reserve held its first meeting of 2025, and they announced that interest rates would remain steady at 4.25% to 4.5%. If you're interested in creating a Roth IRA as a nest egg for this cycle, this will be linked right in the video description. They have almost 50 different crypto assets with more on the way. So you guys already know I've had a crypto Roth IRA with iTrustCapital since January of 2020, and I believe they're the absolute best in the game. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and just as a personal side note, I started taking this immunoglobulin. I don't know how to say it actually. But I've started taking it, and some of my symptoms that I've had since moving to Puerto Rico have started going down, so I'm actually able to function again and feel like a person without the constant fatigue, the brain fog. So I'm trying to get back to my old self. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button and let me know your thoughts down below. You can find all links to my crypto resources, including tools for charting, trading bots, wallets, portfolio trackers, and exclusive discounts right in my link tree in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.